So they were like fighting over who was gonna help me with birth my baby. Butts in the air like this is nipple stimulation. That is the only moment throughout this entire experience where I thought, I can't do this. Oh, sweetie, let's not have a baby on the floor. In my opinion, that's the reason I was able to have an unmedicated birth. Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. In this video, I'm gonna be talking about my positive, unmedicated hospital birth. I'm gonna be talking about how I achieved this through hypnobirthing and what other tools I used to have a successful, positive, unmedicated birth experience. So if you think you could benefit from this video, then keep on watching. So before you watch this video, go and watch my other two videos about having preterm labor, because that'll explain what the end of my pregnancy looks like. And the other video you should watch is why I wanted to have an unmedicated birth and my reasons for that, what my last birth experiences were like, and all that stuff. So at 36 weeks and 5 days, my water broke. So I was sleeping at 4 a.m. I felt a gush and I knew my water had broken because my water had broken with Cal. Jumped right up, I ran to the bathroom, and sure enough, more water came out. And I was like, okay, I need to call the hospital just to make sure, because I knew that I wanted to labor at home as long as possible. I talked about that in my other video. So I call them and I tell her situation, and she was like, well, it maybe could possibly be your water. But then I told her my water broke last time with Cal, so I know what it feels like. And she was like, oh, okay, then just come right in. So with this, I took my time, packed all of our stuff. Luckily, my best friend was in town staying with us. She was able to stay here with the kids when my parents came. While I was getting ready to go, I just took things very slow. With the last two, it was like speedy, especially with Cal, because I was super nervous because he was preterm. But because I was in the 36 weeks, I was in the safe zone, like we made it. The whole bed rest experience was all worth it. I was taking my time packing my bags, making sure I have like snacks and just all these little things that I wanted to have. Taking it slow. I remember we took some pictures in the car, dropping peace signs because I just wanted to like take in this experience, didn't want it to be rushed. We get to the hospital, checked in for triage. Then they're like, yeah, that was definitely your water. I'm like spewing all over the bed. I get up to go to the bathroom and I'm just like, it's just gushing, and Max is laughing because he's like trying to clean me up, and she's walking in, and it was hilarious. So she's like, yeah, your water is definitely broken. Let me call your doctor and see what he wants. And at that time they had asked me, do you want an epidural? No. They're like, do you want intermittent fetal monitoring? And I'm like, yes, please. And at this point, when they call a doctor, I was not having contractions regularly. And what was so weird about this whole experience is like they had to stop my contractions the last, in my third trimester. It was like constantly like, stop having contractions. But the second my water breaks, my body almost like I feel like it kind of gave me a break, and it just kind of slowed down and stopped. So it was the craziest, weirdest thing. And I have a friend who experienced the same exact thing. Like she was going into preterm labor, but the second it was time to have a baby, her body just kind of slowed down. I was very fearful of them pushing Pitocin on me. So she calls my doctor. He said that you can be on intermittent fetal monitoring, but she's like, I probably shouldn't tell you this, but he was a little upset that you didn't want Pitocin because you're not having contractions. And I love my doctor. I think he's a great guy. I know like in any emergency situation, he would be there to help me, but he's in the hospital. I understand that doctors want to have the babies when they're in the hospital. So it's just kind of where we are in Western society is like, get the Pitocin, get the baby out. Do you know what I'm saying? So, but I didn't want that. I wanted my body to do everything as naturally as possible. So she said, your doctor's gonna be in 20 minutes. So I had like a good little talk of like what we want, an emergency, blah, blah, blah. Doctor comes in and he's like, your water broke. He's like, but you're not having any contractions, so we don't wanna run the risk of infection. Which is like, especially like 24 hours, whatever. And my water had only been broken for an hour and a half. So I was like, I felt like my body could get there. I knew my body from Cal's experience, and I just knew I could do it. I never thought that like I was gonna go over 24 hours. I just knew I could do it. He's like, all right, you can do the intermittent fetal monitoring. Let's get you in your room. So I get in my room, and then our nurse comes in and she asks about Pitocin, and I was like, nope, I don't want it. And she just kind of started laughing, and she's like, well, at what point would you want Pitocin? And I was like, I don't want it. I don't want it ever. And I was like, I'm gonna have a baby without Pitocin. I was like, I just know my body. And she's like, all right. And then so she leaves, and she was super nice. But again, I was getting this like theme of people wanting to push Pitocin. I didn't feel like I was supported. So as soon as we get in our room, we get our stuff set up, and I was like, okay, let's go on a walk right now. Like, I do not want to sit. I don't want to lay down. I want to walk. I want to move. I want to squat. I want to do everything I can to get these contractions coming and coming consistently and coming strong. We go on a walk, and that we kind of test out, okay, where our root is, that's going to be our walk. We come back because we were only allowed to do, so with the intermittent fetal monitoring, you had to do 20 minutes on, 40 minutes off. So in those 40 minutes, we were walking and moving around. We come back for the 20 minutes. I ask her if I can be monitored while standing up, sitting on a ball, anything. I just don't want to lay down. She monitors me on, I was sitting on a ball at this point. I was just kind of moving around, doing some circles, and it was fine. I got back up. I knew I could labor by myself for the first couple, getting to about a 7. I knew I could do that by myself. So I really wanted Max to be energized and ready to go for like it's go time. So he was taking a nap at this point, and I was totally fine with that. I knew that he needed to rest to support me like when it really mattered. And I just want you guys to know, this is where my first tip comes in, is you setting the mood was so important and critical for me. In the room, the lights were all off except the monitors. And I had these little fake candles kind of like all over like tables. So the mood in the room was very calm and zen. This is another thing very critical. Noise canceling headphones and a hoodie, because just being in the zone and listening to the hypnobirthing meditations by Bridget Taylor is the one that I did. That is the reason, in my opinion, that's the reason I was able to have an unmedicated birth. That was the reason I was able to not freak out, never scream, because of the ambiance and the zoned in state of mind that I was in. And I felt that it was because of the atmosphere that I created for myself. I felt like that was what I could control. So anything that I felt like I could control, I made sure it was what felt good to me. So I had the headphones on. I could not hear anything else around me. I couldn't even hear when people came in. They were to ask Max questions. It was like, I'm in the zone, I'm doing me. If you need to talk to anyone, you talk to Max and he answers for me. I'm just doing my thing. I'm constantly walking around. I'm sitting on the toilet. I'm squatting. I'm doing lots of laps in the halls, and my contractions are starting to come and they're regular. And I'm like, great. Now let's get these contractions stronger. This is like, I feel like the only thing that I did that people might think is weird. Maybe, I don't know. The number one way to naturally induce yourself is nipple stimulation. Came to Max, and at this point I felt like I was around a 4, okay? I did not want to get checked because I didn't want to be discouraged if they're like, oh, you're only at a 5, and I'm like, oh, I thought I was at a 7. I did not want to be discouraged anyway, so I did not want them to check me unless it was absolutely necessary. Wake Max up, and I'm like, hey, do you think we could, just spend some time together? So Max and I did that for about 10 minutes, and no joke, right after that, I was like, okay, these are coming and they're coming stronger. And I was like, wow, it actually worked. So that's another tip, nipple stimulation. And they say that just like kissing your spouse and whatever hormones are released, it's like helps you get into labor, helps you get your mind off of it. Really good. Another thing that I did is smiling as much as possible. Might sound weird, but when you smile, you release like good endorphins and all that stuff. So I was like smiling throughout this whole thing as well. Just a point. After that, they were coming super strong. And again, I'm just like walking around. So one of the times while I'm doing this, she comes in to monitor me, and I'm sitting on the ball and the contractions are getting more intense. So I'm not just gonna wanna like sway around. I need to like lean forward. I kind of doing this like rocking thing. I'm closing my eyes. I've got the headphones on. I got my hood on. So I'm like, if you can picture it, I'm just like this little like hermit, okay? Just in my zone, in myself, just meditating. It's hypnobirthing, okay? So if you've done it, you know. And she comes in and she like puts her hand on my jacket and she's like, every time you're having a contraction, your baby's heart rate's dropping. And I'm like, crap, well that's not good. I don't want that. And she's like, but I think it's because you're like crouching down. I think it's the position. So she's like, let's monitor you for 20 more minutes. And this sucked so bad because I had to lay down. And when you're having strong contractions, the last thing you want to do is lay down. And I was like kind of getting a little nervous because with Cal, this is what happened to me. I wasn't allowed to get out of bed, and so I'm having contractions like laying like a board, and it is way more painful having them like that if you're not being able to like move and breathe through them and like rock with them and picture the wave and all this stuff. So in those 20 minutes, I had to lay on my side. They did the fetal monitoring. monitoring and they're like, oh, she's perfectly fine. That was when I started to think, okay, things are moving. And she asked me again, she's like, so at what point, you know, do you feel like you want Pitocin? And I was like, no. I was like, I feel like my body is starting, we're almost in transition. I was like, I feel like this is going. And she was like, okay. And so again, the nurse doesn't really believe me that I'm as far along as I'm saying I am. And at the end of the story, it'll explain what she was thinking. Again, I'm telling Max, I was like, hey, things are happening. Like I feel myself opening. I feel like I'm about to hit transition. So Max is awake. He's on his phone at this point, and I'm just walking around the room, breathing, preparing myself. Again, I'm still just like this little like hermit walking around with my hood on, my headphones in, and I'm just swaying, I'm breathing, and in between contractions, I'm trying to like smile, be positive. I'm trying to picture her. One of my favorite things that Bridget was saying in my ears was like, picture yourself as like this flower opening every time you're having contractions. And so I'm just picturing myself opening up, and I'm picturing Reese coming, and it's just like the hypnobirthing image, you know, all that good stuff. So I think it's like 11 a.m. at this point, and she comes in and she's like, hey, so do you want me to check you? And I'm like, nope. She's like, okay. She's like, okay, it's time to get you back on the fetal monitoring. And I'm like, I don't know. I was like, I really don't want to lay down. I'm like, I feel like I'm transitioning, like it's coming. And she's like, okay. She's like, you could stand. And I'm like, okay. I was like, I'll stand. So this is when I told Max, I was like, hey, I really need you. Like, this is happening. I need your support. It was at the point where I felt like I couldn't do it by myself unless I had the emotional, physical support of Max. So what I did during these contractions is I'm holding, you know, because Max is tall, right? He's 6'5". So I'm able to like put my arms around his neck, and I'm putting my head on his chest, and he's just like rubbing my back, right? And I'm just breathing, I'm swaying. I'm really, really digging in, listening to Bridget's voice, because every word she said was helping me. Feeling Max, his touch, swaying with him was getting me through these ones. Have about, you know, 2 or 3 contractions, and she comes in, and I look at Max and I was like, Max, I feel like this is happening very soon. And he's like, okay. He's like, well, do you want her to check you? And I'm like, I don't know. I was like, so this is when I'm like, I don't know if I want to get checked, because I feel like it's literally around the corner. So she comes in and she's like, do you want me to check you? And I was like, no. And then she leaves. So I jump on the bed and I tilt the bed up, and I'm like, all right, okay, these are coming, these are getting intense. So I tilt the bed up, I'm like over the bed like this. I remember Bridget saying, it was like the part of the hypnobirthing where she's like, breathe down. And I'm like, this is the first time I made noise throughout the whole thing. The only thing that I was doing was breathing, you know, in for 6, out for 4, right? 6, 4. I already forgot. I think it's like in for 6, out for 4. And one thing I also was doing the bubble lips. I was doing that. And I think I also learned that from the Ida May book. That was really helpful too. Like when I was breathing out, I don't know why, but it was just like that constant movement. It really helped me through the contractions. So that was the first time when I'm over the bed. That was the first time I made a noise, and I was like, huh. So I was like making this like deep groan noise. Okay. So I have 2 contractions, and then I turn around to Max and I'm like, okay. I was like, I'm feeling like I'm gonna push pretty soon. And he's like, okay, well, let me go get her. He goes and gets her, and she comes in and she's like, you want me to check you? And I was like, yeah, I'm like, this is happening. So she checks me and she goes, you're only at a 7. That is the only moment throughout this entire experience where I thought, I can't do this, because I feel like I'm about to push, but you're telling me I'm a 7. So it was the most conflicting feeling I've ever felt, because my body, my head is telling me your baby's coming, you're about to push, but this nurse is telling you can't. That was the moment where I'm like, I can't do this. There's no way I can go from a 7 to a 10 when I feel like this is the point, this is the max amount of intensity I'm going to feel, and I'm going to push her out, I'm going to get relief from the pushes, and her to tell me, no, you can't do that. That was a little disheartening. So she leaves, and I was like, okay, let's just keep going. I'm like, oh, next one's coming. And so I jump off the bed, I grab Max around the shoulders, and then I kind of was like, oh my gosh. And that's when I knew, I was like, she's coming. I was like, Max, she's coming. I can feel it. I feel like I need to poop. And you know, if you feel like you need to poop, that's it. So I'm like, I feel like I need to poop. And I look at him, I'm like, she's coming. So I'm like, please go get her. So he goes and tries to get the nurse, and I'm turned, the bed is super high at this point, and so I'm like leaning on the bed like this. I hear Max come back and he's like, she's with another patient. She'll be in a second. And then I hear a different voice of her nurse I haven't met this whole time, and she's like, oh, sweetie, and she puts her arm on my back. She's like, let's not have a baby on the floor, because at this point, my body just started pushing by itself. And it was like, I felt like my abs were like I couldn't control my abs contracting in, and my body was literally bearing down by itself. I felt like I wasn't doing anything. It was like subconscious mother instinct in Liz's brain was like doing it for me, if that makes sense. So I'm kind of doing this, kind of starting to like push, and she's like, oh, sweetie, let's not have a baby on the floor. So she puts the bed down. I don't even know why I did this. My sister was like, why did you like get in that position? I'm like, I don't know. I just did it. Like, it wasn't me doing this. It was like, I don't know, my natural mother instincts. So there's like a pillow right here, and I like jump on the bed and I like grab the pillow like this, and my butt's in the air like this, and I literally could not stop myself. My body was just pushing her out. It was literally just bearing down, pushing her out. I could not even stop it. So I'm like hugging onto this pillow, my butt's in the air, and I'm like, then this is when I sounded like I would say like a mama bear. And actually, after I gave birth, my throat hurt because of those noises that I was making. During this whole moment, I didn't really recognize what was going on until after the fact I'm playing it through my head. So the nurse that came in was just a random nurse that was thinking, oh, I should probably go in there and check. This husband has come out a couple times. So this random nurse came in to check. And then so she runs out to get someone that can actually help me. So my nurse is with another patient. She's not even in my room. So a random nurse comes in and she's like, head's coming. And that's like the most relieving thing that I heard that whole time. I'm like, okay, this is happening. It's finally happening. Like, she's coming out. So this random nurse is here, and previously, with my other babies and births, they had to go in and stretch me out. This is how Max explained it. He said she was just moving body parts like this because she was just coming so fast. So my real nurse comes in while this is all happening. She gets her gloves on and she's like, move out of my way. This is my patient. The random nurse was like, no, I'm already here. I've got it. The baby's coming. And she was like, what? She's like, no, she was at a 7. And she's like, no, the head's right here. She's coming. And she's like, oh my gosh. So they were fighting over who was gonna help me with birth my baby. So Max said that Reese just fell on the bed. That's how fast it was. So I pushed for 3 minutes. It was so fast, and it was felt so good to push during the contractions. So with this whole experience, that was my favorite part, is that no one was telling me when to push. No one was instructing me on what to do. My body was doing it, and they were the ones following my lead, if that makes sense. The nurses were just, you're doing great. Keep doing what you're doing, instead of all right, now push 1, 2, 3. It was me controlling the situation, and that was the best feeling ever. I'm in that position, with my butt in the air. She comes out, and she wasn't crying, and I can't see her. So I'm just like, oh, is she okay? Max is like, yeah, she's okay. They're just trying to get her to breathe. And you're kind of like, what just happened? I just birthed the baby. So I turn around, and then they take her over to the little warm thing. They're trying to get her to cry, and then she started crying, and I was like, whew. So I was on my knees, I turned around. I was careful because the umbilical cord's there, and I had to swing my leg over. And then my doctor came in, and he was like, wow, great job. He's like, you didn't even need me. And this was a really good, satisfying feeling, because he's like, you did it all on your own. He's like, you didn't even need my help. He's like, you killed it. You're a rock star. So I birthed the placenta and everything. Super easy, so easy to get that out. They start pushing on your belly. When you have the epidural and they're pushing on your belly, I couldn't feel anything, obviously. So they're just pushing and whatever, it doesn't hurt. But when you don't have the epidural, they're pushing on your stomach, and you're really trying hard not to contract your abs, but your abs are fighting against them. So they're really pushing down. So that was not very fun. But after you have a baby, you're like, oh, that's fine. I can do anything. So after I get cleaned up, I didn't tear. I didn't have anything down there, no stitches. So he congratulates me, looks at my cute baby, congratulations, he leaves. So after they all leave, then it's time for me and Max, with the baby. And then our nurse is there, and she was like, and then this was another satisfying thing, because she was like, I really didn't think you were at a 7. She's like, you weren't acting like you were at a 7. She's like, she just kept saying you weren't acting like, this, you weren't acting like this. She's like, I can't believe you did that. You killed it. And she just kept praising me over and over and over again. At first I was kind of upset, yeah, what the heck? You didn't even, you weren't even listening to me. You didn't believe me the whole time. I told you I was gonna push, told you the baby was about to come, but you're like, oh. But Max was like, listen, they probably get so many women in here who, or they think they're a 7, they're actually a 4. You know, it's like, it's really hard to gauge what it's like. And I was like, you're right. I should really give them the benefit of the doubt and be kind. And I was very appreciative that she was like, you're awesome, you killed it, because that made me feel a little better, not gonna lie. So if I could go back and change one thing, or I guess I should say, if for our next baby, for the next birth experience, I would just love to have like a birth team of people who just say like, listen to your body, like your body knows what to do. Like, I think that would be like the goal in the future. But other than that, I honestly felt like that whole experience was super positive, very empowering, very powerful. Like, I've never felt like that in my entire life. It was the most wild, crazy, amazing experience I've ever had. And after it was done, I was like, that was amazing. I want to do that again. Growing up, I always thought it was just like, you have an epidural and that was the only way you have a baby. It was like, pain is bad, take away the pain. But with this experience, I realized pain is good, bring on the pain. I want the pain to open my body to have my baby. So yeah, that's it. I hope I didn't leave anything out. That was the whole experience and I loved it and I want to do it again. I never thought I would say that about a birth, but I really do. It was amazing. And if I left anything out, if you have any questions, leave them in the comments below. I will answer them. I would love to do a next video on pros and cons of epidural because I really do feel like I had positive experiences with both of them. I hope you guys like this video. Give it a thumbs up. And if you want to see more videos like this, then subscribe to my channel. My baby's crying, it's time to go, and I will see you in my next video. Bye guys.